Welcome back to the Luxury Circle. I'm here with Jorge Guerra, my distinguished guest, owner of RESF, very, very successful real estate conglomerate, if you will, in Miami and beyond. And he's had RESF for 20 plus years now. So we're going to kind of get into his head, kind of ask him a few questions, put him on the hot seat a little bit, and just discuss what it's been like. What is it like to break into the luxury area of real estate? What does it feel like to be an entrepreneur? Because we always want to ask business owners how they feel, get into the psychology of entrepreneurship. And so we want to go ahead and start. I'm going to ask you the 5 questions. It's going to be very relaxed. As you can see, we've got a cigar and a drink in hand. We wanted to make this as relaxed as possible. So question number 1, George.
Shoot.
You've said real estate is no longer about curb appeal, but web appeal. How does that philosophy translate when the client is high net worth and the asset is a luxury one that you have to visualize and see with your eyes and touch?
One, first of all, great research, finding that quote. And that was a quote that I actually came up with when I was in my early 20s, when I started RESF. The internet was booming. I was 27, 26 years old. The average broker was 64 years old. The average practicing agent was 57 years old. My mid-20s, full of dumb confidence, I'd love to say. And,
What's confidence?
Dumb confidence. And to be honest with you, because of my age, because of the timing of, where technology was, I saw an opportunity. And I knew that with the boom of the internet, I knew that the way that we marketed, the way that we told the story on how we sold the house was going to change forever. And being young gave me the ability to really invest my time, my effort into technology. So, I was one of the first brokers in South Florida that really used video marketing as my lead. I made a commitment, almost 20 years ago that every single one of our listings was going to go online and we were going to make a movie of it. And the beauty of it is that, not only was that going to be the best way to show real estate, but South Florida grew up during those times.
Yeah.
Agreed. We became a world market. So think that type of marketing, really became from a trend to a permanent staple, in real estate. And, to sort of hit a little bit of your luxury angle, the reality is that, the first showing happens online. And a true practitioner, I think one of the goals that we try to do in sales is really try to put the consumer in the property, have them feel as if they were in the property even before they're in the property.
Yeah.
The first showing happens online. So the better job you do of really showing that property, really creates that emotion of home. So I knew very early on that, storytelling and putting it on video and being able to distribute it and putting in front of the right eyes, there was no other better way to create that emotion, to create that urgency, to really get that high price. So for me, web up, from curb appeal to web appeal was just me really, at that time, trying to articulate, where I thought my industry was going and how I was trying to position my company to sort of, compete and to strike a chord within the industry.
And I think you hit it because you were able to foresee what exactly is happening right now in the market. I mean, you look at the advent of like the Zillows and the Redfins and the, homes.com and the realtor.coms. Like, I remember that you were on the forefront of that. And you were always the web guy, you were always kind of spearheading those things.
Listen, I wanted to buy real estate in your mind.
Right.
And I knew that, I knew a couple things. I knew that if I created content that was out of the norm, but that was practical. I knew that if I put my branding on it, that if I kept the same color, the same font, and I created some consistency through time, I was going to buy real estate in people's minds. And that was really my goal, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And, luckily for us, we've been able to do that, like you said earlier, a little bit longer than 20 years. And to wrap around your luxury market comment, you know, this is a reputation business. I think you know this more than anybody.
Yep.
And, you know, time does tell. Time does show reputation.
Well, we've both been in the industry a long time, so we
have to,
we've worn the hats. We've got, you know, all the bumps and bruises and scars from it. So yeah, 100%.
It wasn't a straight road.
Yeah. George, as the 2020 chairman of Miami Association of Realtors and a leader at the national level, how did that serving the broader industry shape the way that you run RESF and serve your own clients?
I think that's a great question. And it's a multi-level question. In 2020, you know, I had the opportunity to be the chairman of the Miami Association of Realtors, the largest association in the nation. And then Juan, 3 months later, guess what happened?
Let me guess, COVID.
COVID happened. And think that in Florida, 25% of our gross domestic product is real estate.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, the world shut down. And I was in charge of the largest association, local association in the nation. I had, at that time, you know, over 50,000 realtors that were that were in shock and awe, looking for direction, looking for leadership, looking to see what the future held. So for me, that was my first, you know, thrown into the big show. How did I, and you know what, we're gonna probably edit there for a second, but
yeah, we'll edit.
How did I, so the way that serving really helped shape me, especially after COVID, honestly, is that when I was chairman of the Miami Association, I was already tech forward. You know, I had all of my listings were on video. A lot of my company's communication, collaboration, and distribution of content was already online.
Okay.
So when I became chairman and we hit COVID, you know, I think one of my biggest strengths there was the way that I connected with my industry, the way that I said, guys, let me show you how we can still operate. Let me share with you how I'm running my company. At that time, I'm going to be honest with you, Juan, we weren't competitors. We were looking to stay afloat. We were looking at each other and tips and tricks to sort of survive and make it through, you know, a pandemic that we didn't know we were going to come out alive on the other side.
That's called pivoting.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It was more beautiful than that.
Yeah.
Because it was pivoting with the whole entire industry working together. Competitors went side by side, you know, to make sure that we're able to work for our clients, work for our businesses, and work for our industry. Now, the other advantage that I had when it comes to getting involved in my industry, it's a very simple one. Juan, I'm an independent broker. You know, I don't have anybody telling me what to do or giving me directions or pointing north in different avenues of my industry. So by getting involved in leadership, man, I'm rubbing shoulders with the CEOs of all the major brands.
Yeah.
You know, we're going down for coffee, smoking cigars, having drinks. And you know as well as I know that once you build a friendship and a relationship, man, you talk.
Yeah.
You talk industry.
Yeah.
You trade, you know what's working in your market. And for me, there's no greater learning than being out there with the biggest people in the industry, listening, engaging, but more importantly, being a part of that conversation.
Got it. Yeah. That's good. I mean, I remember that. Like, I remember when it happened. And I think the key word there was pivot. You know, hey, guys, we have to pivot. You know, this is going to shape and change the way that we view real estate and lending and, you know, all of these areas, because, you know, we've never faced this before. We don't know exactly what to expect. And I think, you know, if you're old hat at this, which you are, and I am, you know, you thought, oh, I was there in 1997. I was there in 2008.
So you know what I have a saying, okay? I was born in the boom, raised in the crash, thriving after the pandemic.
Yeah, there you go. And that's exactly right? Like, yeah, look, 2008, everybody lost. You know, there are very few people who didn't lose. I lost big. But, you know.
So you know what? I lost big, but I gained an incredible real estate IQ.
Sure.
That built, you know, a portfolio and a machine that will never be taken down.
Right. And
I think we all got a PhD in finance after the 2018 crash.
100%. And that's kind of that's where, you know, kind of we're going, because, you know, you look at things like that happen. You look at, you know, like crashes or corrections in the industry, and you think, okay, what can I gain from this? What can I learn from this? How can I position myself to be better after this, after we come out of this. And I think we already went through all of the tough stuff. So right now, everything kind of seems like a walk in the park.
And we know the signs, we know the signals, and more importantly, we're prepared to take advantage. Fair?
Very fair. I would 100% agree.
But just to add some more, being involved in my industry to me is super important. I've been in this industry 20 years, and I think I have a good pulse on where my industry is going. So for me, one, it's really important to have a seat in the table, to make sure that my opinions are heard, that I'm one of several voices, to make sure that there's consensus.
Sure.
And I got two boys that are in high school right now, and one of my biggest concerns as a dad is their future. And I want to give them the opportunity. If there's a second generation to my company, man, that they have the opportunity, and that I've been a good steward in making sure that the industry is still preserved for them tomorrow. So that's again one of the main reasons why I'm really involved. Not to mention that I've been in the business 20 something years, and I feel like I have a duty again to make sure that I'm a part of it. Not to take away the fact that I have a deep passion for it as well. Don't let me fool you with that.
But I mean, you're also the head of a lot of agents. I mean, you've got a lot, and we'll get to that question. That's coming up next. But it's a good segue into that. You are responsible, is the word, for those agents, and you're responsible for what they do, what they perform.
There's something huge responsibility, right? People come and they go and they study, and they get a license, and they knock on your door, and they trust you with the direction of your future. And that's a responsibility that I don't take lightly. In my firm, I do. Real estate has out of 10 people that enter, 9 fail.
That's correct.
9 fail. And to me, I've always taken that very personal, and I've always wanted to make sure that I beat those averages and that I beat those numbers. And, as a real estate broker, trying to be the best steward, of my agents, I focus on what really moves the needle. Being in the business 20 years, being an independent broker, competing with all the national brands is not an easy fit if you don't feel that you have a strategic advantage, if you don't feel that you're able to move at a much faster, much more nimble rate. And the biggest thing that we have to deal with is the speed of change and being able to stay competitive and compete at a higher level. Because us independents, we have to practice at a much higher level to really compete in this industry. And for me, I live for that competition. I love that challenge. And to get somebody new that doesn't know anything and change the trajectory of their lives, or to get somebody who's experienced and show them different avenues, man, it's one of my favorite things to do. It's the closest I come to giving birth, is the way I say it.
I mean, you're giving birth to a lot of agents. You definitely are, at the very least, successful agents.
At the very least, suffering the pain, right? Going through labor.
Very true. We know Jorge Guerra, but we want to know RESF. Give me the story on how it started and where it is today.
I'll give you the short on it. RESF started in 1999. I told you I had dumb confidence where I was in my mid-20s, and I had a great idea. I was going to be a big-time real estate broker. I opened up RESF, and what I did at the very beginning, was I had a niche that I specialized in, and my niche was pre-construction. Very much like you see Severa, you see Fortune, you see all these companies that do the high rises. I was actually in the opposite spectrum, and I was turnkey selling for tract home developers. So townhouses, single family homes, tracts of land, hence the name Real Estate Sales Force. I wanted to be a sales force for developers.
Okay.
Right as the market started to boom, I actually went from tract homes to mid-rises. So down 8th Street, down Northwest 7th Street, we had a bunch of new developers that popped up. And
condo conversions, that type of...
Well, you know what? Condo conversions, I did a lot in Doral.
Yeah.
Incredible side hustle. But the reality was that pre-construction was my niche. I loved to find developers where they had the land, help them with the design, the pricing, the sales office, the sales launch. That was really my forte and what I did really well. I want to say that from 1999... from 2004 to 2006, I picked up $250 million worth of pre-construction listings.
Wow.
And as you can imagine, I crashed with all those listings in my hands.
Pretty close to that.
Pretty close. And, I'm going to be very frank with you, Juan. When the market crashed, I probably went, 16 months without being able to generate a consistent cash flow.
Yeah.
I didn't get into the REOs, and their sales market wasn't trading. So I was in a situation where I was trying to figure out, up against the wall, pregnant wife, brand new house, no income, negative equity everywhere. And, like, I guess we do best up against the walls when we shine the best. And that's when I sort of transformed RESF from a niche brokerage. And I said, never again do I niche myself.
Yeah.
I want to go general. And if the market goes up or if the market goes down, I just want to make sure that I'm in the middle of that transaction. And that's when I did a pivotal shift. And one, it was at the perfect time because the market crashed and I didn't reset. My industry reset.
Yeah.
Everybody started back at zero. Yeah. And it was now who can hustle more, who can leverage technology more. And, like anybody in that situation did, I went from 20 agents to 3 agents. And then when I went general, I needed to sort of reshape my value proposition and figure out 2 things: how I was going to generate income for me. And at the same time, if I was going to grow a business, how am I going to create value for those agents to find me valuable enough to come and join my company and be part of RESF?
Yeah.
And that's when the transformation happened. I went in there and I started to invest in the things that move a brokerage, which I love to say that there's 4 things that I really focus on. Number 1 is admin. I want to make sure that people get the documents in and they get paid right away. Second thing,
that's important, right?
Listen, at the end of the day, the reality is that, you have a lot of luxury agents that make millions of dollars, and then you have a lot of agents that are working, and live on a paycheck, and they both work just as hard, and I have equal respect for both of them. But I will tell you that administration, getting contracts and paying people right away. Marketing, I wanted to make sure that my people had content to distribute that was relevant, that was impactful and that brought real estate in people's minds. The third thing was training. I wanted to make sure, man, that whoever came into my company knew how the market worked, knew how to go out there and hunt, knew the tools that they needed to go out there and be productive. And then the last thing that I focused on was recruitment and retention.
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that those that I brought in stayed. And then I wanted to make sure that I was always looking for healthy talent to bring in. And I made those 4 pillars, my main focus. How am I going to improve in these sectors? And I knew that if I kept my focus on these things, man, that I was going to attract the agent that fit into my culture, that was part of my ideology and philosophy when it came to sales.
It's great. Yeah, man. I think a lot of times you can niche yourself to death. And really, kind of
listen. Niches make riches.
Yeah.
But in the brokerage world, for me,
right,
I felt that I'd be more effective and I'd be able to take advantage if I went more general. And Juan, we've been working on those things so hard that I think that 21 years later, we have 5 offices.
Yeah.
From the Keys all the way to Broward County, and we have north of 500 agents. That service.
Amazing.
Yeah,
that's amazing. So because a lot of people, like they might see your name out there, they might see Jorge Guerra, they might see RESF, but they don't know the real story, and they don't know how much power, and how much
power, blood, sweat, and tears.
Well, yeah.
Well, behind the scenes to get to
that creates the power in the real estate industry. It's not, how many did you close? It's how many people do you have out there representing the brand. And to be completely honest with you, and the reason that we wanted to have you on here today is because your brand is strong. Not only is the RESF brand strong, but the Jorge Guerra brand is strong. And, what we've seen with the agents that come out of RESF, man, they all follow the same kind of trajectory. Training, heavy training, a lot of social media stuff, a lot of information on the web. There's a lot of movement around that. The agents are not sitting idle, and they're not just, hoping that RESF strokes them a check.
Listen,
and they follow the Jorge Guerra brand, which is exactly what you did. And so they're kind of mimicking what Jorge Guerra did in order to be successful.
Well, listen, I would love to take the credit. They were mimicking what Jorge Guerra did, but this market changes at such a fast rate that I've been lucky to find people that play the game at a higher level.
Good.
That I'm honored that they serve under me and that they help.
Spoken like a true leader.
Listen, they help lift the brand. They help elevate, the people within my company. So honestly, I'm only as good as, the practitioners that I have under me.
Very good. Yes. All right, George, want to make sure that we talk about luxury on the channel. So what separates a genuinely high-end property or experience from one that is just simply expensive?
It's a great question, Juan. And I'm going to be very honest with you. Anybody can sell an expensive product.
Yeah.
You know, the question is, can you tell a story? Can you make it bigger than what it is? And luxury properties usually have something unique, something specific, something that needs to be told in a way where scarcity is, you know, the feeling.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to rewind that again.
Go.
All right. So I'm just going to take it from the question.
Yeah.
One, great question. And I think anybody can sell something expensive. You know, the question is, can you really create a luxury feel to your sales? And I think that's what separates, you know, the real true salespeople within my industry and the luxury agents that elevate their game to a whole other level. And when it comes to separating yourself, I think it starts with understanding that, almost giving the property a personality. And finding ways to really accent, you know, those strengths in that personality. Starts with incredible photography. It starts with video storytelling.
Yeah.
And I love to say this, it starts before you even walk in the door. You know,
Explain that one.
Oh, and I usually get that question when, you know, George, how do I break into the luxury market? And I love to tell people, number one, don't fake it until you make it. You have to learn it before you earn it.
Oh, that's good.
Number one.
We're gonna go ahead and steal that from, okay?
Number two, you have to have a passion for something in that luxury environment. And I'll give you an example. Either you have to be in love with kitchens and love the design and know the products, or you have to have a passion for architecture, or, and Juan, I think you do this better than most people I know, you have to be a phenomenal networker, know how to put yourself in the right circles and be impactful when you're in that circle. So for me, learning before you earn it, surrounding yourself with the right people. And here's the missing link that people can't teach and don't talk about. You have to have an incredible competitive drive.
Yeah.
You have to want to be number one.
Yeah.
And you have to say, I'm not going to sleep, eat, and I'm going to work until I get to the top. And that's what most people that want to enter the luxury market don't have. They want to make the money. They want to learn, you know, they want to do this, but they don't have that. I'm not going to sleep and I'm not going to quit and I'm going to be number one and I'm going to knock more until I get there. And that competitive drive spirit is what separates those that are consistently in the luxury space.
Yeah, I think, and I really love what you said. And obviously we are going to steal that. So I'm sorry. But, you know, a lot of people, what they want to do is they want to put luxury agent or multi-million-dollar producer on their bio, and they've never done anything. And they don't understand how the luxury market works. They don't understand what luxury buyers want, what, you know, sellers want from them, or it's required from them to sell a property. So I'm so glad that you actually came out and said it. You know, listen, don't fake it till you make it. I know some people will give you that advice. Do not do that.
Worst advice ever.
Yes, I agree.
And you know what? Those that tend to be very well off have a good eye for those that practice their craft.
Oh, yeah.
That train.
Yeah.
And they see it a mile away. They see it in the way that they walk, they talk, they hold themselves.
Yeah.
And when you don't know what you're doing, you see that, you're a deer in headlights.
You get exposed quickly.
and even worse, if you get exposed later. Nothing worse
Yeah.
than creating that relationship and then being exposed and then really ruining your reputation.
Yeah, I love that. That's amazing. Final question. We always ask high achievers, what advice would you give someone trying to break into the luxury circle the right way?
I like the way you said that, the right way.
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, you know, don't fake it until you make it. Learn it before you earn it. And I think when entering any market, Juan, you want to start off with a strong foundation.
Yeah.
You know, and from that strong foundation, you build upon.
Yeah.
And whatever you build upon, that steady foundation is going to hold you down. So for me, making sure that you learn before you earn. Second step for me would be really identifying where in the luxury space you have your muscle. Where's your value proposition? What's going to sort of make you stand out? What's your superpower? And again, it can be architecture, it can be design, it can be kitchens, but think that you have to have an affinity or a passion for something in there. You just can't want luxury.
Right.
And then one, for me, I say this all the time, luxury in South Florida is one of the most competitive markets anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
Right now in real estate, we have a market here that luxury properties fly off the rack, where pricing is appreciating at an incredible rate. There's nowhere on earth right now that is more competitive than here.
Yeah.
So think one, that we have the best practitioners on earth here.
Yeah.
So in order to compete here, you have to have an incredible competitive drive. You have to want to be number one. You have to want to master your craft, not Monday through Friday, Monday through Sunday.
Yeah.
And, again, we have the best practitioners. We have an economy that's booming. People pay $600 to get a license to be able to compete here.
Yeah.
When you have such a low barrier of entry, everybody comes in. And what happens when everybody comes in? Only the best of the best survive. And for me, strong base, niching your knowledge, knowing what's going on in that space, and then having a competitive drive to find out where the consumers are at, to find out how to generate value to them, to make sure you're in front of their faces, and then to make sure that when the moment of buying and selling that you are their resource takes an incredible amount of time, effort, persistence, and consistency. If you're not born with a silver spoon, and I wasn't
either.
I know.
But you always hear the cream rises to the top, right? Well,
all the time.
And you have to really know what you're doing in order to really break into this market. I always tell people Miami is the Dubai of the US. And you can go to Dubai and sell real estate. Any woman with a pretty face can do that. But to sell in Miami, you have to really know what you're doing, because you're competing against guys and girls from New York that are moving down here from Chicago, New York, LA. They're all moving down here for a spot at the table. What have you done to earn your spot at the table?
Absolutely.
So I agree. George, thank you so much. You've been amazing. What a great guest. What a great interview. I think we're going to have to make a Jorge Guerra part 2 of this. And it's been amazing.
Listen, thank you. I've seen the people that you have here. It's an honor to be part of the people that you've chosen to.
The honor and the pleasure is all mine. Thank you.